Okay, right, all of you. So, in yesterday's class, we discussed about introduction part of the BA, and today I'm going to work with complete scenarios related to Power BI desktop. So I'll show you how to install Power BI desktop also practically. And in Power BI desktop, the major operations we're going to perform are copy data, transform data, DAX data. These are the major operations we are doing, and visualization creation, but that is a different scenario. Okay. So now, before going to discuss transformation, DAX, these are all, copy data is important. So we are going to copy data from source to Power BI, whatever the source. Okay. Because not only databases, we can also copy data from file system sources, different things we have. And yesterday I discussed very clearly how data is going to store in Power BI environment in the form of table. No doubt. What table contains? Structure. So structure means metadata. In the same way, data means rows. Rows means physical data. Metadata and physical data. Okay, this is the terminology of the Power BI. In general terminology, suppose you are working with RDBMS databases, we call it as structure and data, right? So, in general terminology, in RDBMS databases, we call structure and data. Structure means columns, data means rows, right? But when it comes to Power BI environment, okay. So, coming to Power BI environment, we call structure as metadata and rows data as physical data. Don't forget this point, because sometimes we are going to copy only metadata, sometimes we are going to copy metadata and physical data also, right? So, coming to next scenario, now when we are going to copy, for example, there is some table in the source, okay? Like as we discussed in the last class, table name is products, and in this table we have some rows, 10 rows existing in the table in the source. In general scenario, you are going to copy data from source to Power BI means you're going to copy structure and data, or only structure. Different requirements will be there. For that, we are going to work with different ways, right? Different ways, different scenarios will be there to copy data from source to Power BI, right? And so now, what are those different scenarios to copy data from source to Power BI? That is what the question. We have data copy purpose, import and direct query, right? Data copy purpose, you can use import. In the same way, you can also use direct query. Suppose you are going for import, what happens, table structure, metadata in the same way. Rows means what? Physical data will be copied from source to Power BI environment. This is what happens. Okay, now? So please listen carefully here. We are working with import. You are going for import means what's happening here? Physical data, metadata, everything will be copied. And you can use import for any data source, not only databases. If you are going to work with the file system, if you are going to copy data from file system, even for that also, you can use import. Okay, na? So when you are going to copy data from source to Power BI environment, any portion, not only databases. And when you're going to copy data from source to Power BI environment, table structure and the data, metadata and physical data will be copied into Power BI, and it is going to store into Power BI environment permanently. Got my point? So that is import concept. When we are going to use import, suppose your data set size up to 1 GB, whatever you are copying, data size up to 1 GB, it's not mandatory. Generally, based on performance, these things, I'm giving these suggestions. Up to 1 GB size, then we can use import. Okay. Because the reason is already it is occupying space in the source. Again, it is going to occupy space for the physical data in Power BI environment also. Right? And that's why I'm giving some limitations, storage purpose, and storage is going to affect performance also sometimes. That is also really important point. I'll give you more information about that in the coming sessions practically. And coming to next scenario, now direct query. Let's go to direct query. So direct query, what happens, only metadata. Metadata means what? Table structure. If you're using direct query, only metadata will be copied from source to Power BI environment. That's my point. So that means physical data will not be copied from source to Power BI when we are working with the direct query. Okay, na? This is the way. But when we are going to use direct query, see, data set size is more than 1 GB. Then it's better to go for direct query. And you can use direct query only for databases. If your source is file system, then you cannot use direct query. Remember that point also. If your source is database, then only you can use direct query. But okay, this point is clear. Data size, based on data size, we can go for import and direct query. That's okay, fine. But important point is, when we are going to work with import, right? When we are going to work with import, what's happening, Complete table in the sense physical data and metadata, everything is going to store in Power BI, in the Power BI environment, so that you can use it for report purpose. But when we are working with the direct query, physical data is not going to copy, only metadata is going to copy. Right? And then how to create visualization report? Because if you want to create report, you need data. But this direct query is not copying data, physical data from source to Power BI. Then what is the use of working with the direct query? My question is correct, right? See, direct query means whatever the physical data there in the table, that is not going to copy into Power BI environment. That I am accepting. But remember, some direct connection, continuous connection will be created between your source and Power BI. Suppose you are going to create reports, what you are using, column names basically you are using, then whatever the data existing in those columns will come to report environment, right? In this scenario, if you are using import, so physical data is also going to store in Power BI, so you're just going to use some column from the table, then automatically data will come when you are creating report. So even the direct query also, you are getting metadata into Power BI, right? Metadata means what? Columns names, right? So when you are going to use that column name in the report creation, automatically from the source, data will come. Directly, data will come from the source. That's what I'm saying. It is continuous connection. What is direct query? Import, it's not continuous connection. Whatever the data you require, you just copy it. That's all. There ends the matter. But there is one more scenario we have to discuss about it. Before that, just I'm trying to explain you. I mean, this is confucius. Why we are using, because physical data is not copying. Then how we are going to use the table in the report creation? I mean, direct query table. We cannot use the table in the report creation, right? This is common doubt. No, don't worry about that. So I already told you, right? Continuous connection will be established between our source and Power BI. Okay, no? That is the scenario. Okay, no? So in the same way, for example, suppose you copied data from source to Power BI by using import. Now, after copying data, your source got modified. What to do? Chances there, right? Yesterday we discussed the sources are OLTP, right? Anytime OLTP data can be modified. Your Power BI is OLAP, so you cannot modify data in Power BI, but your source can be modified, right? Nobody can stop. So what to do? Valid question only, right? And valid question. So now what happens, you know, if any modification done in the source, initially you copied data, your task is done. After that, any modifications done in the source, then we have to copy those modifications from source to Power BI. That is the scenario. Got my point? We call it as refresh. We have some option here, refresh. By using refresh, we can copy required data from source to Power BI environment. Okay. That is the scenario. So now, if it is import, it's okay. Because import, what's happening? Physical data copies from source to Power BI. Then if any modifications done in the source, then you have to copy them to Power BI. Refresh you can use. But what about direct query? In direct query, physical data is not going to copy, right? That is the point. That is the point, right? No need to go for refresh. If you're not going for refresh, then how you are getting modifications? Tell me. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Okay. Right, guys. So now, right, that's correct, Tabassum. Correct, you're right. So now, general question. General question. So why refresh is not required for direct query? Because direct query is not copying physical data. If it copies physical data, then you have to go for refresh. You have to copy modifications. Yes, basically data is there in the source only, right? Where the modifications are happening in the source, only modifications happening. If any modifications there in the source, they're going to store in the source. Whenever you are going to use that table related columns in the report creation, automatically you'll get the data. That's all. There is the matter, right? So direct query refresh is not required. Import refresh is required. That means you have to copy. You have to copy modifications from source to Power BI, because maximum scenarios we are going to use import to copy data from source to Power BI. That is clear. Now tell me, any questions? I mean, like, what difference between import and direct query refresh? Any questions, please? Anybody? Any questions? Anybody, please? Okay, na? Because this is the base for entire training. That's why I'm asking any questions. Any questions? Right. Coming to next scenario. Not only memory, Tabusam, not only memory, but modifications also. That is actually a good question, good scenario. I'll tell you the reason. Real-time scenario. If table is modifying regular intervals, right? And if table is modifying regular intervals, then how to copy data in regular intervals? I mean, modifications from source to Power BI. Am I right or not? Okay, no? That is also important scenario when we are going to select import direct query. If your source is modifying regularly, if your source is modifying regularly, most regularly, then better to go for direct query. Like static tables, source modifies but not regularly, then it's better to go for import. These points also really important. Okay, Nandi? And coming to next scenario, import can be used for any source. Why? Because see, not only SQL, not only database, we are going to copy data from different data sources to Power BI environment, right? That's what. But you know, this direct query can be used for only databases. Other data sources you cannot use direct query. Sandeep, we are unable to hear you. If you have any question, message please. Okay, no? Right? Any question, please message. So that is the difference. So next step, okay, that's fine, Anna. But see, you're copying metadata, physical data, fine. For example, you take databases. What is the purpose of databases? Data storage only. So data stores in the databases in the form of tables. Right, that's okay. But coming to Power BI, and Power BI is not database, right? Power BI is data warehouse tool. Then where data is going to store in Power BI? See, if it is database, then I will not ask this question. I cannot ask this question. Power BI is data warehouse tool. It's not a database environment, right? So where data, how data is going to store is clear, table. But where data is going to store in Power BI, that is what important now. Okay, no? So now, Azure cloud environment, where the data is going to store in Power BI, Azure cloud environment, data is going to store. See, maintain clarity. The reason is you are starting Power BI development means you have to start with the copy data. That's what you are going to do. What is the data? what is table, what is physical data, what is metadata, and where the data is going to store. These are all really important, no doubt. After that, how to copy data, import to direct query, right? And next, refresh, because modifications also really important for us. We have to copy modifications from source to Power BI environment. These are really important for us. So initially the topic copy data, if you are strong, then you can go with other scenarios. Otherwise, you cannot. Data copy is really important in the beginning. Whatever the data source, just leave it. Okay. That's what I clearly mentioned, right, Sandeep? Physical data, metadata will be copied. Physical data means what? Rows. Metadata means what? Columns, right? Even I typed clearly, right? That is for import. Direct query means what happens? Only metadata will be copied. Physical data will not be copied. Right? And so these are really important. Even limitations also I discussed. When to use import and direct query. What are the scenarios you are going to work with import and direct query? Even those things also I clearly mentioned here. You know. Right, guys? Now tell me, any other questions related to these topics, please? Sujit Kumar.
Hello.
Any questions?
No question.
Right. So it seems Tanya Sinha not connected to audio. Okay, no? So next step, we have to start working with the practical part of the business intelligence. For that, you need Power BI desktop. Now I'm going to show you how to download Power BI desktop. Just open Google website like this. Here, type it as Power BI desktop download. It's free version. Directly we can download and install. Even we have some paid versions also. What are the paid versions available? That also I'm going to discuss. See this. You can see that website because it's recording already. Go to the advanced options. Right. Go. If you scroll down, you can see download button. Select this one and next. I think network is slow. Please wait. Seems network slow, right? Yeah. It's almost completed. Wait. What happened there? Why it is taking time? Still it is downloading. Again, what happens sometimes it gives errors. Then you have to download it again. See, any questions you can unmute and talk to me, or you can send messages. Okay, na? Is the file downloaded? Open it. Wait. Yeah, it will be. Right here, go to next step. It's taking time. Please wait. Just next only. It's very easy to go for installation. Accept license and next. Next and install. Okay. So I'm not going to click on install because I already installed it. Okay, no? This simple thing like how to install this tool also. Right, guys. So now coming to next step. We have to start working with the Power BI desktop that we will start from next class. But next class, a link is going to change. Some of you already attended last week demos and this week 2 demos. Some of you attended these 2 demos also. We will give generally 2 demos. Next class will be paid. If you are okay, if you really wants to continue this training, talk to training team and we'll continue with the different link, paid link from next class onwards. Okay, na? Right, guys? Okay. Next class link is going to change. See you.